ask the president of the Liberal Party to begin that process.
This resignation comes as he faces mounting criticism. Trudeau has been the leader of the Liberal Party for 11 years and Prime Minister for 9.
Meanwhile, a joint session of Congress just certified President Trump's election victory today, with Vice President Kamala Harris overseeing the counting of President Trump's 312 Electoral College votes.
That's right. Newly re-elected House Speaker Mike Johnson had vowed that even the massive winter storm blowing through the Capitol today wouldn't keep Congress from doing its constitutional duty.
A lot has changed since January 6th, 4 years ago. It's now time to rewrite the sham narrative that the Democrats and mainstream media peddled for so long.
Oh, and that also includes justice, especially for the J6 prisoners who had their lives destroyed at the hands of Nancy Pelosi, Liz Cheney, and so many others. That's why right now we'd like to welcome in Tim Hale, former J6 prisoner and 33-year-old Army Reserve veteran. Tim, welcome into Special Report.
Well, thank you so much for having me back on. I'd like to use this opportunity to announce my candidacy to run for governor of the 51st state of Canada. So thank you.
Well, hey, you might have an opportunity here soon. I want to get right into it because you were released from the D.C. jail after spending nearly 3 years incarcerated for nonviolent offenses, mind you. Please share your story of what happened to you.
Sure. I walked inside the Capitol after doors had already been opened. I was in the Capitol for about 40 minutes. I went to hear a speech. I didn't even know there was going to be a protest. I wandered on down there. The cops started attacking the crowd. They don't tell you that part. And it escalated into a riot. I followed a crowd into the Capitol. And when the Capitol Police told us to leave the building, we left. And actually, things were less violent inside the Capitol, which is not what you would expect if it was, in fact, an insurrection. That makes no sense. I got picked up about a week after January 6th. I was a naval weapons contractor. NCIS came looking for me. They actually found my roommate. They strapped him with a wire. They tried to frame me as a domestic terrorist and a far-right extremist. And I was denied bail, and I rotted in prison for about 3 years.
Wow.
So, but my conviction just got vacated, so wish I didn't have to serve my sentence, but I'm innocent. Woo!
Well, Tim, we've heard horrid reports of J6 prisoners being treated unfairly. Perhaps that might have happened to you. Also put in solitary confinement. Did that ever happen to you?
Yes, sir. When we got to the D.C. jail, or the D.C. gulag as it's called, we were kept in solitary confinement 23 hours a day. And we were kept in those conditions for approximately a year. I spent many, many months in solitary confinement. And unfortunately, because DC is worse than any deep blue state, the COVID lockdowns, the COVID protecting us from COVID, that was the Trojan horse that they used to deprive us of civil liberties. And this unfortunately happened all across the country, not just in DC.
I have to ask, what was going through your mind during those times when you were in solitary confinement?
Well, quite a lot. I'm a bit of an introvert. I would like to say that my mind is a universe. And so for me, maybe it was a little easier than others. I retreated into myself, and I just tried to be as strong as possible. And unfortunately, it wasn't just limited to the solitary. We were denied religious services. We couldn't receive communion. We were denied family visitation. We were denied access to our lawyers. We couldn't get medical treatment. We couldn't go outside and see the sun. But I believe that every man has to bear his cross, and I think a lot of us are stronger now for it. But it's a humanitarian disaster. It never should have happened, and it can't be allowed to happen to Americans in the future, on either side.
Yeah, it definitely can't happen again. Tim, as Trump's return to the White House draws near, how do his promised pardons offer new hope to defendants still facing prosecution and imprisonment?
Well, there's a lot there, as they're still arresting people. They're still prosecuting people. They're still hunting people down. They're still raiding people's homes. And so pardons are an important thing, and they're a big thing. And I'm confident that President Trump will keep his word on that. But, one thing I want more than anything is to be exonerated. I want the men who were smeared and framed, and the men who are currently rotting in prison, I want them out. And I want them to be vindicated. I want the truth to come out. I want the video to come out. And I want the families reunited. The pardon isn't going to change what happened in the last 3 years. It's not going to rebuild people's lives, but it's a start. I think more than anything, though, we want to be vindicated and exonerated because we were set up.
You mentioned the pardon. I mean, there's a lot of evidence and things that have come out since that time, Tim. So do you think there's hope now with President Trump coming back into office, and thankfully it's him and not Kamala Harris, that there will be exoneration for you and hundreds of others? Because it sounds like a lot of your civil liberties were jeopardized, and how is that going to happen? Or is it likely to happen, do you think?
I absolutely think it's likely to happen. The question is just in what form. A lot of people are demanding that Trump issue some blanket pardon on day one, everybody. I'm not confident that's going to happen. I think he's repeatedly said they're going to look at things on a case-by-case basis. I think that's wise. It's not because I don't think the vast majority of January 6th defendants, it's not because I don't think they deserve to be pardoned, because I think that ultimately they were set up and denied due process. But I think that there are certain actors within January 6th that need a deeper look at, like Ray Epps and characters like that. There were Antifa members there. There were CHSs, or confidential human sources. And there were just suspicious organizers and actors, provocateurs. And I think we deserve to know, especially, and again, this isn't just about me, but I know I didn't deserve to lose 3, and I suppose you could say 4 years of my life. I want to know the names of the people who set us up. And, I think that true justice requires full transparency. So I am hoping that the pardons and even clemency, letting people out of prisons, will, begin the process of making people whole. But I also want President Trump, when he takes over the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and Defense, I want to know who these CHSs were. I want to know the means by which they set us up, who coordinated it. And, I also, not for nothing, I would like the members of Congress who held those false hearings, those committees. I would like the people in every branch of government. I want all of them to be held accountable. Again, I don't want revenge, but I do want justice. And that means holding these people accountable for destroying thousands of lives.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
So to that point, when you were there at the Capitol on that day, did you notice anyone that was suspicious or someone that just didn't look like they belonged?
At the time, it's funny for me because I had gone days without sleeping. I was an overnight contractor. So the only reason that, frankly, I was even awake at the time was because I was banging, energy drinks on the way from New Jersey. I was in a state of adrenaline because the cops were throwing flashbangs at my head. So there's a lot of things looking back at the video that I just missed. I thought I was there. If you look at the video from my cell phone, which you can find on my Twitter, you see that we're just chanting USA, we're chanting Crisis King, we're singing God Bless America. Life came at us fast. Like, I just wasn't expecting a lot of that. And so from my perspective at the time, it just seemed as though the police were just attacking us for being Trump supporters. It's only after being able to see thousands of hours of video that we realized there were nefarious actors there. And of course, keep in mind, when I was in D.C., there were Antifa members there they tried to plant with us. One's name was Zach Alam. He's the Antifa member who broke the window where Ashley Babbitt got shot through the neck. So there are pieces to this puzzle I wasn't privy to, and I don't think most of us were, but we learned it, and there's a lot more to it.
Tim, what's your opinion of Liz Cheney, knowing that now that she may have tampered with a witness in collusion with the Democrats and was also just honored by President Biden?
There's a cosmic, I'm going to say, irony and hypocrisy in the fact that they launched a crusade against us, this political inquisition, and they called it the shock and awe campaign. But one of the things they did was they used that false felony I was just vindicated of, obstruction of an official proceeding, 18 U.S.C. 1512. That had to do with the destruction of documents and tampering with witnesses. That's what they did. That's what actual members of Congress did. Forget the dude who pulled the fire alarm to interrupt congressional hearings. You had people who were holding committees and destroying evidence and leading witnesses. They tampered. Not only that, they not only tampered with their own investigation, they prejudiced any possible jury in Washington, D.C. when it came to J6 defendants. I was in jail with people whose names were being read off and being projected from widescreen TVs in D.C. just to make the local populace hate them even more. They're criminals. What they did to us, they charged us with that statute for rioting, which was inapplicable. And in reality, they're the ones who that statute actually fit. Now, are we going to see them prosecuted? Probably not. But, they would deserve it. They would deserve to have to wear that same mold encrusted armband that we had to wear every day in D.C. They would deserve it, but I don't know if that will happen.
They definitely would deserve it. And let's not forget, Kamala Harris had compared J6 to 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. So that's the smear campaign that they're trying to work on here. Tim Hale, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me back on. God bless you.
God bless. All right.